The Girl and the Stray. A story of redemption and loyalty. Madeline stood at the edge of the sidewalk, her blonde pigtails swinging behind her as she impatiently tapped one foot. She was waiting for her friends to arrive. 9 years old and used to having her way, Madeline had grown into a bossy, demanding child. Rarely did she stop to think about anyone else's feelings. Her parents were wealthy but perpetually preoccupied. Her father was constantly away on international business trips, and her mother ran an exclusive luxury fashion boutique downtown. The person who spent the most time with Madeline was their housekeeper, Clara, who spoiled her without hesitation. As a result, Madeline believed the world existed to cater to her desires. Her three neighborhood friends, Sophie, Olivia, and Ethan, arrived moments later, giggling and whispering among themselves. They were all around the same age, their shoulders burdened with backpacks and little handbags, but they typically followed Madeline's lead in everything. Madeline gave them a superior smile and lifted her chin as if she were royalty surveying her loyal subjects. The afternoon breeze rustled the manicured lawns of their affluent, suburban neighborhood. There was something uneasy about the wind that day, though none of them recognized it at first. Then they saw it, the dog, its ribs painfully visible beneath its patchy, mud-caked fur, crept out from behind a row of trash cans. It was a German shepherd, or at least it had once been. It was so thin and filthy that it was hard to recognize its noble breed. Its amber eyes flickered from one child to the next, wide and nervous. Ugh! Look at that disgusting thing! Madeline shrieked, recoiling as if the sight alone could infect her. She took a step back and wrinkled her nose. The revulsion spread like wildfire. Yeah, gross. Sophie echoed, pinching her nostrils as though the dog emitted a foul smell. Get out of here, ugly mutt. Ethan chimed in, his voice breaking as he tried to sound tough. The German shepherd froze in place, its ears flattened against its skull, trembling as though waiting for an inevitable blow. Madeline's lip curled. She bent down and picked up a stone lying by the curb. Without hesitation, she hurled it at the dog. Go on. Get out of here, she barked, her voice cold and sharp. The rock bounced off the pavement, narrowly missing the dog's paw. Startled, the animal let out a yelp and darted away, vanishing behind the corner of a nearby house. Madeline smirked, satisfied that she'd chased it off. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with a twisted sense of triumph. She loved the power. Her friends looked at her with admiration, as if she were braver and cooler than they'd ever thought before. None of them gave the dog another thought. But someone else had witnessed the scene. Across the street, sitting on his porch, was Mr. Leonard. He was a retired schoolteacher, his hair gray, his eyes kind but observant. He had seen a lot in his life, but cruelty, especially toward defenseless creatures, always troubled him deeply. His forehead furrowed as he watched the children walk away laughing. For now, he said nothing. The days that followed Madeline's behavior toward the stray dog only worsened in the days that followed. Whenever she spotted the shepherd skulking through alleys or rummaging in garbage bins, her reaction was automatic: contempt. In her mind, the dog was beneath her. It was an eyesore that didn't belong in their pristine neighborhood. One afternoon, Madeline and her friends were lounging in the grass near the park. It was a warm day, and they had just finished their ice cream cones. Across the street, the German shepherd appeared again, sniffing around a trash can. Madeline stood up abruptly. You don't belong here. Go sleep in the trash where you came from, she shouted. She scanned the ground and picked up a long stick, holding it like a sword. Olivia and Ethan cheered her on, though neither made any move to join her. Madeline crossed the street, waving the stick menacingly. The dog froze, its frightened eyes locking onto hers. Its tail tucked between its legs as it backed away slowly. Now, young lady, came a voice. Mr. Leonard had appeared from his garden gate, crossing the street with purposeful steps. Put that stick down, he said firmly. Do you know what you're doing? Madeline glared at him. Why should I care? It's just a dirty stray. Her friends snickered behind her. Mr. Leonard pressed his lips into a thin line. There was disappointment in his eyes, but also something resolute. Every creature has a story, he said. You don't know what that dog has been through. It might have lost its family. It's not easy living alone on the streets. Madeline tossed her hair defiantly. Whatever. But inside, something twisted uncomfortably in her chest. She hated how Mr. Leonard's gaze seemed to see right through her. A week later, Madeline went to the park alone. Her friends had other plans, and she was bored. She wandered toward the old drainage ditch that marked the park's edge. It was steep and slippery, and as Madeline leaned over to look inside, her stylish flat slid on the damp grass. With a scream, she tumbled down into the ditch. It wasn't very deep, maybe 5 feet, but the mud made it nearly impossible to climb out. Her jeans were stained, and her ankle throbbed from where it had twisted awkwardly on the way down. "Help!" she shouted, but the park was nearly empty. No one heard her. She tried climbing, but each time she grabbed the slope, she slipped back down, and then she saw it. A face peering over the edge. The German shepherd. Madeline's heart seized. Of all creatures, why this one? "Go away," she barked, more from fear than anger, but the dog didn't leave. It carefully made its way down the slope. Madeline cringed, unsure what it planned to do. Without warning, the dog grabbed the back of her jacket, gently but firmly, and braced its legs. It began to pull. Madeline scrambled, kicking at the mud, and inch by inch, they made progress. After a tense few minutes, she found herself back on solid ground. Safe. She sat there, panting, staring at the dog. The shepherd's sides heaved with effort, and its tongue lolled out of its mouth. Its eyes met hers, calm, almost gentle. Madeline's face flushed with shame. She wanted to say thank you, but the words stuck in her throat. Instead, she jumped to her feet and snapped, "I didn't need your help." The dog's ears drooped. Without another sound, it turned and trotted away. Madeline watched it go, her stomach churning with guilt. The stranger on the street weeks passed. Madeline said nothing to anyone about what had happened, but her view of the dog had begun to change. She sometimes found herself watching for it when she walked home from school. One late afternoon, after leaving Olivia's house, Madeline took a shortcut through a quieter street. The sun had nearly set, and shadows stretched long across the pavement. Halfway home, she noticed a man behind her. He wore a ragged hoodie and walked slowly but deliberately. Madeline quickened her pace. So did he. When she turned a corner, she found herself in a dead-end alley. The man followed. Madeline's heart pounded. She turned around, backing toward the fence, panic rising. The man grinned in a way that made her stomach twist, and then, from the shadows, a growl rumbled. The German shepherd appeared, its fur bristling, teeth bared. The man froze. "Call off your dog," he muttered. Madeline said nothing. She couldn't speak. The dog advanced, growling. The man hesitated, then turned and ran. The shepherd watched him go before padding toward Madeline. She dropped to her knees, shaking. Why did you help me?" she whispered. The dog wagged its tail slowly. Madeline reached out and touched its head. For the first time, she noticed how thin and matted its fur was. But she no longer felt disgust. "Thank you," she said softly. A hero's sacrifice. A month later, Madeline woke in the middle of the night to strange noises downstairs. Curious and worried, she crept to the stairs. There was a burglar in the house. Frozen with fear, she watched him shove jewelry into a bag. Then, without warning, the German shepherd burst through an open window. It tackled the intruder, biting his arm and dragging him to the ground. The burglar fought back, swinging a fireplace poker and striking the dog. Madeline screamed, alerting her parents. Light snapped on. Her mother threw a vase at the burglar. Her father called the police. The dog held on, despite its injuries. Finally, the burglar broke free and tried to escape, but the dog tripped him again. Moments later, police arrived. Madeline rushed to the dog's side. It was trembling, bleeding. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "Please don't die." Her father scooped up the dog, and they rushed it to the emergency vet with Mr. Leonard's help. The shepherd survived, but just barely. Madeline named him Hero. A new beginning. Hero recovered, and Madeline's life changed completely. She was no longer the spoiled, self-centered girl she once was. Her parents made more time for her, and for Hero. The neighbors who once scorned the stray now set out bowls of food and water for other animals. Madeline often sat in her backyard, stroking Hero's head. "I thought you were ugly," she whispered, "but you're the most beautiful thing in my life." Hero licked her cheek, his tail wagging. Mr. Leonard smiled whenever he visited, proud of Madeline's transformation. Even her friends changed, becoming kinder and more thoughtful. Madeline had learned something she'd never forget. True beauty and nobility often hide where we least expect them. And sometimes, the greatest teachers have 4 legs and a wagging tail. The end.